Thank you all so much for being here. My name is Ricky Wolf, and I serve as chairman of the Troup County Center for Strategic Planning. And on behalf of that organization, thank you for taking the time on a rainy afternoon to come to talk about something that we consider to be a very important conversation that this community needs to have. Let me first of all thank Dr. Sullivan for allowing us to use this beautiful facility for our meeting. We have a plan for the next hour to cover a good bit of material, and we want to introduce to you basically a process that we are undertaking in Troup County that basically has to do with finding a way to augment and add to the current offerings of our public education system. Let me first of all say, in total candor, we're not here in any way to talk about the current issues that are facing our school system. The school system board is held in the highest respect by the Center of Strategic Planning, and they have some very difficult decisions to make. And we are supportive of that outcome from them. And the purpose of this meeting is to not talk about the current state that we find our public education system in, but we'll hopefully talk about something that will be a partial solution to providing better public education in Troup County. Let me first of all introduce some folks that will be speaking after me, and for the sake of time, I'd like to do this up front. I first of all would like to thank Kay Duran, who is the director of the Strategic Planning Center, for putting this on. Carrie Burchick, who works for her, who has basically responsibility for all of our activities that have to do with workforce development. I will introduce Russ Moore to you in just a second. Russ is the CEO of an organization called Seamless Education. And our own Paige Estes will speak at the end and talk about the importance of the next step that has to do with some subcommittees which we will be establishing. Let me first of all say that this conversation, like a lot of meetings we have, it has no chance of being nothing but a conversation unless the people in this room become active in it. So I'll be happy to say up front to all of you that if Troup County ever has a college and career academy, it will be because of the industry and the educators and the parents and the children and the governments of this community have deemed it so. So with that, let me start by trying to make the case for this need. I want to throw out a series of statistics, and very quickly you'll be able to put these statistics together. And what I'm trying to do is just paint a picture of the current state of public education, the public state of industry need within Troup County. We're a county of 70,000 people. Currently, over 9.5% of our people are out of work. We have struggled with unemployment, obviously, since 2008. We've made some improvements, but nowhere near where we need to be. That's a very misleading number because that number only represents the number of our people who are unemployed and who are currently receiving a benefit. And a lot of people project that that number could be almost twice that high. It in no way reflects the people who have lost hope and have dropped out of the job market. It does not reflect the people who are underemployed. It does not reflect the people that are trying to work 2 to 3 jobs to keep their family together. And it certainly in no way reflects the thousands of our people who are working as hard as they can at their job, but in no way are making a living wage for their family. That's a very important number, so basically 1 out of 10 of us are unemployed. Secondly, let's talk about public education. The state of Georgia just recently announced the recent results of the cohort graduation rates, which is intended to be a way in which communities and states can compare graduation rates. Georgia ranks 48th out of 50 states. The 2 states below us are the states of Nevada and the state of New Mexico. The graduation rate in the state of Georgia is 67%. The graduation rate in Troup County is 64.5%. So basically what that says is that every 3 years we are losing a freshman class of our students in public education. And we could spend here all day talking about the various reasons for that, but we think that this idea is at the core of one of those primary reasons. So we're losing a class of freshmen every 3 years. We call them dropouts, but they really don't drop out, they resurface. And they resurface through our law enforcement activities, our systems of judicial, and our systems of incarceration. We also in Troup County have all of our dockets, whether it be our juvenile court system, our state court system, our superior court system, all of those dockets are full and all our chambers are full. Our jails are full. And that is the result of people that for various reasons are falling out of an educational cycle for their life. The state of Georgia, in my personal opinion, has a real dilemma in education, and the dilemma is the following. The state of Georgia spends millions and millions of dollars in attracting industry to our state. And we take great pride in the fact that a lot of the surveys recently show that Georgia is ranked relatively high relative to job creation from an economic development standpoint. The other side of that coin is that we rank 48th in the United States of America in terms of public education. And what's happening at the state level is there is a conversation over here about economic development, and then there's a conversation over here about public education. And the idea of this meeting today is to talk about a process by which these two can be married together because they are intrinsically connected and we cannot separate them. We'll never take advantage of economic development without focusing and promoting public education. Let's talk about Troup County school system. It's very easy to throw stones at them. It's very easy to be critical of decisions they made or didn't make, or you didn't like the way this turned out, you didn't like the way that turned out. The decisions that they're making today are not decisions that they want to make. They're not decisions that they seek out to make. They're decisions they have to make. And the reason they have to make them is in the last decade, the state of Georgia has underfunded public education to our school system over $50 million. In the fiscal year that we're in, they will underfund public education in Troup County under $15 million in 1 year. So these very tough, gut-wrenching decisions that they are making is simply the fact that the state of Georgia continues to underfund public education. And for the life of me, I don't see how you defer public education. Now, certainly in the last decade, all of us in government and all of you in your businesses and in your industry, we have had to make tough decisions and we have had to cut back. And from the government perspective, you can certainly cut back building bridges, and you can cut back resurfacing roads, and you can cut back some of those services you provide. I don't see how as a society you survive if you continue to defer and cut back in the area of public education. And so our school system and our teachers and our educators find themselves in a very precarious situation. The idea that Russ is about to talk to you in no way will put more burden on our school system, and in our hopes is it will lift some of the burden from our school system. It's certainly the general idea. We have 20% of our people who live in poverty. And to go along with that, we have extremely high birth rates in teenagers and unwed mothers. We have significant problems with all different types of social diseases that are a result of that. We have all the stuff, if you will, that comes along with 1 out of 5 of your people that are living in poverty. So that all sounds like a very distant picture. And I don't want you to get up and leave saying, golly, this is a very negative meeting. But I feel like it's important, if we're going to move this community forward, we've got to talk about the community and the reality in which we find ourselves. Now let's talk about the bright side, and there is an incredibly bright side. Troup County in this region has created more jobs in the state of Georgia than any other place in the state of Georgia over the last 4 to 5 years. We are the shining star of job creation. It certainly has a lot to do with Kia coming here. It has a lot to do with the expansion of the automotive sector, but it also has a lot to do with our traditional companies here that have grown. Some of those companies have decided to consolidate their manufacturing base here from other locations. So this is a Kia story, but it's also a Troup County community story. And we estimate just the automotive sector, since they arrived here in 2006, have created over 20,000 new jobs. There are regions in the state of Georgia that would die to be able to say what I just said. So we have an area that is creating a tremendous amount of jobs. And that will continue. There's nothing we see on the horizon that will keep that from happening. So here's the disconnect. Here's our problem. Here's why we're here today. And I spend a lot of time with industry. And constantly the message is this. I always ask, how do you like being in Troup County? And the answer almost invariably is, we love it here, great infrastructure here, we were welcomed here, things are going very good here, but we can't find qualified people in our company. We just can't seem to find the technical people we need to do what we need to do in our work. And that is basic across all industry, across all business sizes, large and small. We cannot find technically competent people. Another point they make to me is, you know, Ricky, we have a lot of people interview for a job for us that really have no idea what business is even all about. They don't understand their role individually or collectively. They don't understand the basic finances of how a company works. So we've got some business 101 issues that need to be taught, as well as the technical aspects of what we do. The jobs that are hired in Troup County, as you all know, those jobs have two components. They have the technical job, the technical side, the specific technical skill to do the job, but secondly, there's a large social component. And in today's environment, the majority of these companies are team-based. They have some element of team-based function in what they do. And if you don't have the ability to interface with others, if you don't have the ability to communicate with others, if you don't have the ability to show sensitivities to others who may look, like, and talk different and not be the same color as you, you won't survive in this workforce. And there is a skill to be learned there. And I am hearing from our industrial base that somehow there's now a disconnect between what we're offering and what industry needs. And that is the sole purpose of why we're here today, is to try to find a way that we can marry up the issue of public education and the needs that are expressed to us by our industrial family. And I'm so glad that so many of our industries are here. With that, I will stop and turn it over to Russ. Let me go to the end, if I may. We're going to try to reserve 15 minutes for questions and answers. And there is a card on your table. Please fill this card out for several reasons. One, it's our only way to get back in contact with you. We ask a series of questions about ways in which you feel like you may have enough interest in this to take the next step. And it's also important, if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer those questions. But with all due respect, the questions that we will answer are questions that have to do with the topic that we are discussing here today, which is a college career academy for Troup County, Georgia. So with that, I'll turn it over to Russ Moore. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ricky, and good evening. Great to see everybody here. I did a quick count while Ricky was speaking, and I counted more than 50 people on this half. So there's more than 100 people here. That's great. And that is, I do this a lot. I work with college and career academy partnerships all over Georgia that are in startup mode, they're in planning mode. And I've never worked with one that started with this many people at the first public meeting to talk about how we organize and run our planning process. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about, is that planning process and the opportunity we have for you as a community to speak and be heard, and not just say something, but actually have a contribution to make to what will be. And the answer that might be the question many of you have is, what is this? What will it be? And I'm not going to be flippant about this, but the answer is, we don't know yet because you haven't decided. That's what the process is all about. I will start by speaking in general terms about what a college and career academy is not, and I'll give you a couple of ideas about what it is. I noticed on the agenda that they have a typo. It says here I'm supposed to speak for 20 minutes. I told Kay it was 2 hours and 20 minutes. So just kidding. I'm going to go fast, but I do generally, I mean, I can talk for hours. I'm not going to, and I don't even think that the Q&A part will take that long, but my commitment to you is if there's any question you have that we don't answer fully or to your satisfaction in here, I'm not in any hurry. I'll stay in the back as everybody's leaving and just, until everybody's gone, because I want to make sure you know what it is you came here to find out. And also, we want you to stay part of this process. So this is a transparent process. It's definitely a community-driven process. As you'll see in a minute, it's a data-driven process. So we're going to focus on that. We want you to feel like you understand it and are well informed, but also by the time you leave here today, if not very soon after, we want you to be committed to being part of this process. What a college and career academy is not. That's the easy thing, to just get a few things out of the way. And I was able and honored to make a presentation before the school system and the board last fall, saying essentially the same thing so they would get a grasp of it. It is not an alternative school in any stretch of the imagination. It is not just a vocational school or a comprehensive technical high school, or it's not anything that you're used to knowing about. It is not limited to one facility, and it is absolutely not for those kids. And I don't care how you define those kids. The only those kids this is for is all kids. Anybody in the school system who wants to take advantage of an opportunity that we create as a community to be at the College and Career Academy in Troup County will be served by that partnership. So this is what it is. It is a charter school program, and I'm using the word charter school not to be inflammatory. I know there was a lot of controversy last year. I can assure you, as I went to some pains to do with the Board of Education, the word charter here just means contract. The ballot initiative from last fall has nothing, literally nothing to do with what we're talking about doing here. The charter will be approved locally, absolutely. We won't bypass anybody locally. The state will also approve this. It will be a charter school program. It will not be a separate school with, for those of you who are in education, with a school number and its own separate accountability. It will be inextricably linked and embedded within the existing traditional public school system with additional partners. And we'll talk about it in just a minute. It will be run as a nonprofit corporation by those same partners, including the Board of Education. That partnership will reflect in every possible way the community of Troup County. And it will be, as I just spoke about, for all students. What a charter is, just to get that out of the way. I heard me mention the word contract. It is a contract. It has a lot of characteristics. In the contract, you have language about goals and accountability, and you have to meet those goals. You have a waiver provision written into the charter. The waiver is not intended to get by or get around things that matter, but is intended to allow you the flexibility to do things quickly, flexibly, that makes sense. We have a word that we use in these planning initiatives called, we want to be nimble. We want, even more than being nimble, we want to have the ability to be nimble, which we call nimbility. We've created a term here. We really value that. We value innovation. We value creativity. We value common sense solutions. And this school will be locally run. The charter law in the state of Georgia requires that the Board of Education have control and management of all charters, and that will be true in this case. And yet, there will also be this nonprofit board that they will create with their permission by a public vote if they want to move forward with this. I say if because it's up to you. It's up to them ultimately to approve it, but it's up to you to design something they can approve. So we'll get to that. The do what makes sense part, though, is absolutely the most critical characteristic of anything related to being a charter in the state of Georgia. Now, we're creating a college and career academy, which is sort of a subgroup of charter schools in Georgia. If you look at the database of charter schools in Georgia, this is the fastest growing subset of charters in the state of Georgia. There are now about 26 of these. If you count the ones that are in the process of being designed, we're over 30. So that's in really just starting. Noonan was the first one of these in 2000, but since 2007 they really exploded. So it's the fastest growing segment of charter schools, and they almost all of them follow the process I'm about to explain to you. It's called adding. That's just an abbreviation for the words I'm about to show you. But it's really a business process. It was applied to public education for the first time about 16 years ago by a very wonderful man who sadly just passed away and lived in Newnan. And a few of you knew him quite well, and I did. He was a neighbor of mine. But he did this for years and years in the private sector as a business process that was focused on training and education. And his dream was to turn it into public education, to make it work for public education, to do this. And this is exactly what the process is. We align and analyze. That's the A in ADDIE. They're both A's, but we don't want to repeat too much, so there's just one A in ADDIE. We then design, based on what we learned from the analysis of the data we collect, we design a solution. Then we develop an implementable plan for that design. And then we implement it. That's the I. And you notice this is cyclical. The last part is evaluate. And we can't evaluate without getting back into analysis. So it's actually a never-ending process of continuous improvement. That's what this process is. And we will do that. And in fact, we will also show you where we are in that process every time we meet. Traditionally, a community that gets together and forms a steering committee, which is what we're proposing to do here in Troup County, will meet on a regular basis at some agreed upon time and place. And among the things that I do as a consultant working with you is I'll show you with this dashboard visual graphic where you are in this process, how far we've gone. Of course, I've got a book I carry in my bag that is a free book. Y'all can download it from the website I'm happy to talk about, based in Newnan, and it shows you the process in detail. There's an outline for each one of these phases, and based on that outline, I can show you how far we are complete and pending in that process. The goal is to be here by the time we open the school, and the earliest, according to state law, that we could open a college and career academy and charter school in Troup County would be August of 2014. So by then, we've got to be there on that graph. So when we talk about what the duties of the steering committee will be, this is essentially a list. And if you're looking at that card that you have in front of you, I'm about to turn this over to Paige, you'll see that same list. These are the main tasks that in about a year, we want this community partnership, which may be you and maybe others that you bring into the fold as well, that we work on and that we get done in a meaningful way. The very first thing we're going to do, we've already started that process, is do a community needs assessment. It will be an online survey that will especially with employers, find out what they need in terms of the training, the skills, the knowledge, the attitudes of their current and future workforce. And in a very precise way, they'll define this for us, both hard skills for a job, but also soft skills like work ethic. We'll know exactly what is expected of employable citizens in the Troup County area, and we'll apply that in the design phase next, as soon as we can. We will also look at designing curriculum, developing curriculum around that data. We will come up with a solution about facilities. This has got to be somewhere. There's a lot of options in this community, and you're very fortunate, very blessed to have a lot of options that you can put on the table. What we want to do is to put the best possible solution, the most sensible solution on the table, after taking some time and trouble to analyze what's out there. There'll be personnel issues. There'll be a business plan. We need to raise other public and private money as well to support this effort and to sustain the school once it opens. Though a great deal of its operations will come from existing public funds that normally support education. But we'll talk about that, I'm sure, in the Q&A. We need to have information and data system developed to track this and provide transparent accountability reports to the community, to the Board of Education, to the state, to all stakeholders. And of course, we have to do a very good job marketing this and making sure that we are reaching the students who need it, who want it, and doing for them what we can, what they want us to do for them. I could go on, but that's really the lead into what we want Paige to come and talk to you about, the opportunity for y'all to work with this, and especially to help with these specific tasks. So let me turn it over to Paige.
Thank you all for being here tonight. It's great to look out and see so many of our chamber members and elected officials and concerned citizens in a room, because we all care about what's going to happen to the future lives of the children of this community. I've been asked to chair the steering committee as a representative of the Center for Strategic Planning, and that's something that we discussed at our board meeting. And I'm pleased Scott Landa, our chairman, is here, and many of our other board members, and we thought that that was a pretty good idea, simply because we represent almost 900 business and industries across Troup County. And one of the things that we hear constantly is the need for a qualified workforce. So we feel like it's a great partnership, but it's also something where we can ensure you, business and industry, are listened to through this process. Because if we don't get the right data, if we don't get the right input, then we're creating a product in which our students shall not be successful, nor will you be satisfied as those employers. And it's not just industry-based. We have members that range from sole proprietors all the way up to people with 3,000 employees. While we have over 15,000 manufacturing jobs in Troup County that entail everything from assembly workers to engineers to marketing to accounting positions, we also have great finance, insurance. We've got people in food and beverage that I see here tonight, hospitality, folks of all walks of life that need qualified workers. And more importantly, our children need to understand the opportunities that can exist in our community, but we're really not showcasing what's out there. We also are not creating the type of workforce we need long-term to attract other types of businesses to come to our area. So that's where you come into play and where we need your assistance. We need each of you to provide input when you receive surveys. That's the most important thing, to give us that input, but also we need you to serve on the steering committee in one of the capacities that Russ mentioned. If you ask me right now exactly what all those committees are going to do, I'm going to tell you I don't know. I've read the manual. But so much of it is going to come from the dialogue and the conversations that we have when we pull together a diverse group of people in this community to look at an issue and determine the best course of action. And I know working on other projects, we are certainly going to be successful in that endeavor. We definitely need you to complete the card. If you're not sure what area you're interested in, or even if you really understand enough about the Career Academy, feel free to give us more questions. We're going to answer some of those shortly. And if you're not sure what area that you're interested in, tell us that. That's okay. We can take a look and make sure that we have people from all types of industries and businesses represented on each of the subcommittees. We don't want, and no offense, Dr. Pugh, we don't want just a bunch of educators sitting in a room determining what we're going to be able to offer. While we certainly want your input, and we certainly are going to need Byron to help us figure out how we're going to pay for it, we really need those people that are hitting the road and looking at what they need in terms of hiring a qualified workforce to be our primary players in the process. So again, if you will take your card, complete it, flip it over to the back, feel free to answer questions, ask us questions, and we'll take some of those now. And one other point, I was looking out and seeing some parents in the room. I've had several conversations with friends that have kids in the school system now, and they thought, how does my child fit into this? I had the privilege of going to several of the career academies that are across the state and doing some determination if it was something that might be fit in Troup County. And I thought about myself. And certainly nothing to brag about, but I did well in school. I was valedictorian in my class. I was going to med school. I was a biology major. I thought there's no way this college and career academy is for me. How wrong was I? When I had gone to the other college and career academies that are across the state, it was exactly what I needed, and I probably would have gone to medical school had I gone through that college and career academy, because it would have connected me more closely with the very thing that I thought I wanted to do. And there are other people that are out there that aren't sure what they want to do with their life, that if we can just connect them with a real world experience, we can help them figure it out. So it is for those students that are going to MIT, they're going to LaGrange College or West Georgia Technical College, we want them to come back to this community to be able to live and work and raise a family. And if they don't want to go on to post-secondary education, we want them to have the skills they can to go out and get a job right here in Troup County, and more importantly for you as the employer, to be a top quality worker for you. So you don't have to worry about turnover rates, and all those other things that cause us expense and time in the workplace. So it is certainly, as Russ said, for all students, and I hope that you'll take the opportunity to partner with us and help us determine what a college and career academy could look like for Troup County. With that, I think I'm turning it back to Ricky.
We've got a couple of minutes. Let me make a point that I certainly don't want to get lost in this conversation. Let's go back to the graduation rate just a minute. 2 points about that. Imagine you owned a business and your business was producing a widget. And that widget had 14 steps involved in producing it. And those steps are represented by pre-K, K, and 12th grade. So there are 14 steps in making this widget. You've invested in this widget up until the 13th, 12th, 13th step. And all of a sudden then you're losing a third of those widgets. They fall out for whatever reason. You can imagine how long you would be in business if that was your business model. Think about education the same way. Public education is funded in 3 ways. There is a state basic quality grant that's made every year. It's done on a per capita basis. There's an equalization grant, which we got involved in several years ago in support of the school system because we were in danger of losing what was ours relative to that grant. Then there's a transportation grant. So to the extent that we can keep our children in school to graduate, it is a huge source of income to our school system. Because when we lose that freshman class every 3 years, they have completely dropped out of our system. So it makes sense from an economic perspective. Let me talk about the other perspective. We went up to Rockdale County. They have a career academy there, and I visited some, and to be totally honest with you, I know enough about this subject to be dangerous. And I've got as much to learn as anybody in this room. But we have done some visits, and I have done some reading. Rockdale County, the demographics of Rockdale County are similar to ours. It's close to Atlanta, so their needs are very different, but it's similar, so we went up to visit. Their graduation rate is relatively the same as ours. I think they're a few points higher. But last year, of all the kids who came to their career academy to either take career academy classes or they offer AP classes there as well, their graduation rate for those students was 98%. Now, I don't know all the reasons why, but I know several. First of all, in that career academy, it is the instructor's responsibility to fill his or her own class. And so they start in the 8th grade and 7th grade going to PTO meetings and explaining about the discipline that they teach in the career academy. So what happens there is the instructor early on establishes a relationship with a parent. The child chooses to go to the career academy to take this class. They are not forced. So the parent, the student, and the teacher has much more of a vested interest in that student being successful in the traditional way in which we provide education. So with all the things that we're talking about, the kids staying home and work, which we need, meeting industry's needs, which is critically important, for the sake of our school system, from a funding mechanism standpoint, we need that graduation rate to be exceptionally higher than it is today. And we think that this concept has proven to be something that will certainly do that for us. So with that, I will stop. We will stop, and we'll be happy to take your questions. I am sure before we start this, you're going to ask a lot of questions that we don't have the answer to. And that is the purpose of you being here, to participate in the steering committee process so that we can certainly answer those questions at a later date. So with that, we'll open the floor up for any comments or discussion of questions you may have. Carrie has a microphone.
How does a college and career academy differ in the way the curriculum is developed and how it's applied to all the schools than like an industrial technology center? Or how is that different?
The question is how the curriculum is decided. There is an extremely important part of this process called the assessment. And the assessment will be done by Russ and his organization. And it's really the first time, to be honest with you, in our county's history that we've done an assessment to this degree of detail. And what we're trying to flesh out of that is what industry needs, What's the parent's view of this subject? What's the student's view of this subject? And what is the educator's view of this subject? What are the skills required for today's workforce? What are the skills required for the emerging workforce? What is going to be needed here 10 or 15 years down the road? His organization will do an analysis of that assessment, and from that, the career paths and the curriculum will be established. The beauty of this, if we do it well, and we'll fail if we don't do it, is this constantly has to be in a state of being brought forward and being new. And that's where industry and the steering committee come into play. Because we could be offering a curriculum today that's real hot for whatever reason for 3 years, and in 3 years, due to a lot of reasons, the need for that curriculum no longer exists. So we don't want to wind up continuing to force a curriculum on the community of which there is no positive outcome. The positive outcome is for the kid to graduate and to get hired. That's the outcome. And so your involvement in this and in the communities where this has worked well is where the marriage between public education and industry is just like this. They are locked together. And we've never had such a relationship here. We've never had a bad relationship here, but it's never been one that's been that much in lockstep with each other.
How does, I guess, my question's a little bit different.
Okay.
How does the Career Academy work within the current public school system versus how it would work in some of the things that are vocational based or a separate school? So how does Noonan, for example, do they have certain classes that they offer that?
Yes.
Some things they say college prep, some things they say career academy. So what's,
Yes, okay.
how is that different?
I'll be happy to try to tackle that. Keep in mind, I'll use Noonan as an example because you had a question, but I wouldn't want anybody to walk away with the impression that we want to do here what they did at Noonan, because we don't. In fact, I've heard several people involved in this partnership say, we want to be the best in Georgia, and I believe that. And I believe you have what it takes to do that. So I'll tell you what they're doing. I'll also tell you in general what all these partnerships that are organized correctly, they aren't all. And I'll be quite candid about that. But we want to spend some time working on best practices, defining, studying, and coming up with our own answer. As a charter school, again, under the control and management of the school system, everything we do has to be done within that umbrella. We are part of the school system. We are still, this will be, in every sense of the word, a public education solution. Where it's a little different is the attendance, the enrollment will be voluntary. It's assumed, though not yet decided, that there will be some centralized location that the students choose to come to. And yet, we also know, on average, in almost every one of these applications of this model, they don't all go there all the time. They still are enrolled, absolutely, in their traditional public high school. So we've got the principal here from LaGrange High School, right? Your students from LaGrange High School will still be LaGrange High School students. They will come to the College and Career Academy and earn credit in the classes that the entire community has recommended and the Board of Education has agreed, and the colleges have agreed to provide there. They'll earn that credit, either secondary or post-secondary credit, possibly even earlier credit than that. There's the possibility to do middle school programs as well. They'll earn that credit, and it flows back to their base school on their transcript. The question of how to decide, Ricky pretty much covered what is taught there. The who teaches it, the where it's taught, the what is taught, all those things are determined, or at least recommended, based on the data that we uncover as we do these assessments. And we try very hard to do a sensible application of some solution to that. And I'll throw one out thing, because you mentioned a vocational. Vocational has a lot of different meanings for a lot of people. When I was in high school, we called it VOTEC. And when I was in high school, the VOTEC program was for and I'm going to speak like somebody from Coweta County now, excuse me, from Cayuga County, is for them who can't or won't go to college. That's what everybody thought. Well, that's no longer true, and that really wasn't true then, but that's absolutely not going to be what this is. What we have found, and the reason we don't have a separate school with a school number and a full-time enrollment just for this academy, is because human nature being what it is, and what we've learned seeing other places in other states do something similar, is no matter how great the program is, no matter who is behind it, the temptation over time with budgets, with politics, and with just the way people think and the biases that have been with us for generations is it will become a dumping ground. It will become the place counselors and parents and students themselves think, I need to go because I've run out of options. But that's never what this will be. So it won't be. It'll be a vivid, vibrant partnership, always run by the community, always approved by the Board of Education and supported by them, ingrained in their budget, and very successful. I hope I answered your question.
My name is Ellie Smith. I'm with Troup County Democrats, and I got a question when you're talking about facilities needs assessment. Is it on the table to possibly build a brand new facility or use existing schools facilities that we have?
It's a very good question. I don't know the answer to that. I think it's extremely unlikely that we would build a new facility for this. There's certainly space available. What I have learned from a lot of the visits I made is, to the extent you can, make it physically not look like a school. You want it to look like an academy. You want it to be somewhere special and different. And we have a lot of those opportunities as well. But until we do the curriculum and do the work of building the body of the school inside, getting to the issue of facilities is something we'll take up a little bit later. Yes, sir.
She got the mic.
Sorry, yes, sir. My name is Hans Bösen. I have a very direct question. After the kids graduate from the school, can I hire them as a two-time maker? I don't know how we can get them. So if the chamber as a driving source is running this project and working with industry to educate the people as what we actually need, I think most of them, once we are here from the industry, if they are mechanical or whatever, need an education for this. Yeah? We don't need another parallel high school. That's what I see on that. And when I read in Newnham, I live in Newnham, and I have not heard any good thing yet about this third school. They are looking always for science. They are looking for computer. But we need young people who make the computer. But say, let's go this route. Yeah? And I think even Kia needs qualified people. I tried since 10 years to hire here in the area a tool and die maker. I cannot find them. The ones which I find that are not tool and die makers, they have not learned the trade. And this is what we need.
And Hans, you and I have had several conversations, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to make sure you were here and part of the process. I think it has to go back to looking at it from a long-range perspective. This is not a short-term answer. This is not going to be something that by the fall of 2015, we suddenly have filled every job vacancy that we have in Troup County. What this does create, Hans, is an opportunity for us to build a workforce long-term. It gives us flexibility to look at apprenticeships and co-op opportunities that I know you're very interested in from the German philosophy of education and training. And the charter part of the Career Academy also gives us tremendous flexibility when it comes time to hire instructors. We certainly have to comply with education requirements, but we're able to bring someone like you into the classroom to be able to truly teach students what it is they need to know to be able to go out and build that computer.
I explained to you also that we have to bring the students into the industry
And that's a
They
very
have
large,
to be in the industry. They
And
have
that's
to
a large
be
part of this,
part-time in
too.
the industry, part-time at the school. And
And-
then we get the qualified people.
and Hans, that's part of the opportunity when it comes time to develop the curriculum. You're looking at programs, you're looking at apprenticeships, opportunities, you're looking at dual enrollment, especially through West Georgia Technical College. We hope, create those opportunities, but we have to make sure we understand the careers where it's demanded and that we're able to meet those needs, that it is a high level number of people that actually need that. So that will be part of the design. We can create whatever is going to work for our local community. That's, again, the beauty of why this is a charter school.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure we are not looking for the science and the computers and thank you.
I'd like to ask this question. What has been the success story of the charter college relationship schools and industry in other areas of the state?
In other words, where has it worked?
Yes.
And done well? Well, I'll use the one down the road. That's probably the closest one to you, just in Weeda County. You've got people in this room who worked on that one and still work on that one. You've got a board member here serving on that board. You've got past board members who served on that board. You've got people who founded that and were on the steering committee there who are on this group, so that they can talk about it probably better than I about how it was founded. But they had an immediate impact on the dropout rate there. They reduced the dropout rate in Weeda County by half in the first year. That's, of course, not the only measure of success. It's a very important one. They have had tremendous growth there. I'll give you one tangible example from on the economic development side from that partnership. The Yamaha Motor Manufacturing was the largest private employer in that county, and I believe still is. And it had already announced before the steering committee began doing its work in Newnan, that community had announced, that company had announced it was going to have to relocate, mostly for workforce reasons. Yet we were able to induce them to stay without even being open yet, just the promise that they could be involved in helping us, as Hans was just talking about, helping us decide what to teach, and especially making sure that things that they cared very much about as a company were going to be embedded in the curriculum, and that they would also have training opportunities after hours there for professional development, all of which they've done. They are still there. They did not relocate. They stayed, and we were able to calculate from a purely economic development calculation side about a $75 million impact on our county from their staying. They added a product line. They hired 400 new people. That's the kind of success that you could have here. I will make one other point, though. You've heard both Ricky and Paige mention industry a lot. I don't want anybody to think we're only talking about manufacturing or putting things together, widgets. We're talking about business. We're talking about employers. We're talking about people who hire people to do anything. And big, medium, small companies, everybody's voice, everybody who wants to be part of this.
I just want some clarification. I believe it was slide 2 or either slide 3 indicated that it was a charter school. But it's only offering, at this point, a spontaneous curriculum. In other words, the children go to it to take 1 or 2 classes. They don't actually graduate from this charter school.
That is correct.
So it's going to be funded like a regular school, but you're offering a limited curriculum at this point. Is that correct?
It is a little confusing, I'll agree, and I'll even concede that point. The state has had to get its arm around it too. The law permits a charter school to exist that's not a school, but is in fact a program, and that's what this is. It's a program, what an educator would consider a program. It does not have its own school number. It may not have only one address. It may. That's again up to you. It probably will not have, it certainly will not have what's considered to be a full-time enrollment. It will not confer degrees or diplomas. It will be a program where people come, earn credit, and pay back. We're a program run by the community to meet that specific need.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. And the other part, the financial side, it's still going to be funded like a charter school. In other words, you know,
Yes and no.
if a school, if a charter school takes $100,000 per month to fund, it's going to consume $100,000, whether it's a brick and mortar structure or a virtual concept that students come and go.
Right. Now, it is a yes and no, and it's also a little confusing, but I'll try to make it as clear as mud. The school system, it's a good question, it's a fair question. The school system would never approve something, I don't think, the Board of Ed would not, especially in an economic crunch, that makes it harder for them to function. There has to be some economic sense to them for what we put together. So in a traditional sense, in a charter school, which this is not, in a traditional charter school, there is a separate group, an external group that comes in and starts that school or petitions the board to start it. They have to come up with money. For every student who attends that school, the Board of Education does lose money. In this case, that because we're not a separate school, we're embedded as a program within their system, we actually believe and hope to be able to prove in the charter we're going to write, which is required to have a budget attached to it. We're going to write a budget with the help of the school system and their CFO, who will be able to help us validate these real numbers, that we're going to help them save money, help them make money, generate additional revenue. I can tell you one obvious way we can raise money is a direct and immediate impact on the dropout rate, which you've heard a lot about. If we have anything near the result that other communities have, there'll be a huge, significant, multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars a year impact on the state funding that follows every student who chooses not to drop out. So that's just an obvious way. You can also, by centralizing programs that are popular or necessary, instead of having them in several places, just having them in one place, you're not having to spend as much money to buy or maintain equipment. There's obvious savings opportunities as well. So the economic will work in the favor of the community.
I just wanted to clarify too, I'm hearing that the only students that are eligible for this program are students that are actively in the daytime program of school, of high school at that point. Because of the flexibility of the charter, from what I'm wrapping my head around, it sounds like there's a lot of flexibility to it. So I'm wondering if you're going to also include those that have already dropped out, which we have almost half of our people, or people that are a little older, because it might be able to be a night class program. So I just wondered if any of your charters have included those that would grab their GED quick and get into this program that have already been bypassed?
I'll do this respectfully, and I'm not making fun at all. I'm going to rephrase your question. You said, I don't know if you are going to do this. I'm going to throw that right back at you, and I'm going to say, I don't know either what you're going to do, because this is your solution. And when I say you, I don't mean you. I mean you, all of you. You have traditional students, daytime students. You have students who've already dropped out, but maybe you can get them back. You have students who have already resigned themselves to needing a GED. That's already a very successful program, typically run through the technical college. They're a partner in this. There's no reason not to take the resources of all the partners and find a way to do sensible things through this. So, yes.
Have you had any charters, any of your schools do that, include these other people?
The most frequent question we get is, can we serve homeschool students also, and private school students, as well as the non-traditional afternoon or nighttime student? The non-traditional student, the answer is really easy. Yes. Everybody does that. They find a way. Either before a typical school hour, after, afternoon, late afternoon, evening classes. Most of these facilities are open until 10 o'clock at night. They find a way to do The homeschool and private school situation is less easy, but no less important to tackle. So we put it on the table and talk about ways to try to serve everybody who lives in the enrollment zone as we define it in the charter. I can tell you just what the Board of Ed would probably want to hear, I'm guessing, would be they're welcome as long as we've got a way to capture the FTE dollars or the QBE dollars, which would mean they would technically have to enroll in public schools to get that. We'll see. It's still a good question. It's a great opportunity for the community.
Thank you.
I'm Renee Willis, and back in 2006-2007, as part of our Excellence in Education initiative, we started looking at the prospect of such an academy. Ginger Booten, I saw her come in, I know she's here somewhere, but she and I started taking off across the state and visited many types of these academies. Some were very industry specific, partnering with local industries to produce workers just for those jobs. Some were much broader, like the CEC in Newnan and Maxwell High in Gwinnett County, where they had a myriad of offerings. And some of the things that I learned while traveling around the state and looking at all of these, one thing was that students got to find out before they actually got to college and their parents were paying for it, if that was really what they wanted to do with their life.
Or not.
Or not, exactly. One of them even taught a course on manners, so that these children would even be exposed to, having a formal dinner where they would know which forks and knives to use, because in business you're going to be faced with those types of situations. We saw students who were planning on going into engineering at Georgia Tech, so it wasn't just particularly those students as you call them. But one of them that was most significant to me was in Gwinnett County, and they brought in students from all the high schools into their program where they came a half a day. And when those kids got there, they hit the ground running. And we asked the principal, well, don't you have discipline problems with all of these rivalries, with the high schools? And she said she has zero discipline problems in those schools, because when those children are there, they are extremely busy, they're doing what they enjoy, and it's all very relevant to them. So I applaud you, and I'm so grateful that we're finally being able to talk about a career academy in Troup County again.
Thank you. That consumes our hour.
I got one question.
Okay.
Ted Austin, and I am on the board. I have one funding question that I'm a little fuzzy about. When you're talking about people as instructors that have to have specific skills in order to teach this course, how do you come up with those people? And the second thing is you're talking about equipment that is specific to automotive or horticulture or whatever it is. How do you fund that?
Ted, I honestly don't know the answer to either one of your questions. Those are the type of questions that we're going to have to deal with in the steering committee phase. The model that you and I went to visit, that community had great success with hiring. Their instructors had to have some industry experience. They stressed that the whole day we were there. It sounds good, but it's expensive. And so how is it funded? And the funding for this has got to be a private-public partnership of some nature, which is also a part of what this steering committee will do. The companies that are represented here hopefully will participate, from the funding piece to the resource piece to the monitoring of the curriculum piece. If we don't surround this thing with all of us, we have really no chance of being successful. But I tell you how it won't be funded, and I think this was part of Nathan's question, is this is not going to be funding that is going to be dumped on the back of our local school system. And let me make a comment about that, because a lot of you I know have mentioned to me, well, you're not even on the school board, so what the hell you got to do with education? Why are you up here talking about education? Let me try to answer that question. In an unhealthy community, those communities operate in silos. If you got an educational problem, that's your job, Sheila's and Debbie's and Diane's. Y'all worry about that. And if it's the hospital, Jerry Pope worries about that. If it's government, I worry about that. In a healthy community, we're trying to be collectively supportive of each other. We can't survive as a community without a healthy public education system. And I think for too long, in my personal opinion, the Board of Education has been singularly bridled with the subject of how to educate our children. I think that needs to be a much, much broader discussion, and that's what we hopefully have here today. And with that, our time is up. Again, our only way to communicate with you is that blue card. So please fill that out. And again, if you have questions relative to this conversation, you have the answer. And I thank you so much for being here.